Hi Internet friends, my name is Elena and I'm your inspirational guide. In today's episode, I want to talk about a universal topic, and that is, why do we keep blaming our parents? Parenthood does not come with a manual. Our parents did not know how to love, how to give birth, how to raise children. This is something that none of us know. We're not taught to do that in school. But yet we tend to blame our parents all the time, because you know why? It's easier to blame someone for our shortcomings. It's always easier to put our own life's responsibility into someone else's hands. It's easier to be the victim. I can tell you from my own experience. I'm 41 years old. I'm a third culture kid. So I was born and raised in Russia until I was 8 years old. That was during the communism times. And in the early 90s, due to my parents' work, my dad was in shipping, my parents had to move to Greece. And I was enrolled in a private English school. So my whole world changed from basically one day to the next. It was two extremes, from communism to capitalism, a lot of wealth, abundance, and completely different values. So over the years, as I grew up, I integrated myself into the system. And at the age, in my teens, about when I was 16, 17, my parents separated. And so then, once you're in those teenage adulthood years, a lot of things happen in your life. First of all, you've got that stage of your life. You care about, partying, your friends. You've got completely different priorities. And it's just, family situations, changes in your life are not convenient. I used to blame my mom a lot when I was growing up, like my 20s. Those were very hard years. But, at the end, I think this just comes with experience. And this is why I wanted to discuss this topic, because I see it all the time. This is something that psychologists discuss. On Instagram, you get that trending topics that, stop putting the blame on your parents. So as I said, I was also wanting to hold my mom responsible, and because my life had changed, my financial situation changed, because my dad was no longer supporting us. And when you're surrounded by other kids that their parents have a different financial situation and wealth, and they may spoil them rotten, because obviously, if we're talking about private school, that's a different society. And you feel that pressure. You feel that pressure, and I completely, if you're in a situation, a similar situation, a different situation, I understand you. But with my years of experience and going through these challenges by myself, now that I reached a certain point, I understand that I was wrong. I was wrong to put all the responsibility on my mother or my father. I had so much pain and anger towards my dad for years. I just could not understand why he walked out and why he acted like he did. But over the course of, let's say, a decade, maybe, it was towards my end of my 30s, I realized that the position that I was holding and the things that I was playing in my head and the blame I was putting on my parents was wrong. And it was wrong in a way that I could not change the situation. This was my life story. This is what I had to experience. This was the path. We're all meant to live different lives. We're different people. We come from different backgrounds. We're placed on a certain path for a reason. We can't change that, and we should not think about it too much. We should not compare our lives to someone else, because you really, really don't know what goes on in the person's life, family life, the background image that people don't show and don't talk about. And you don't know what's in front. You never know, because life can change in a second. And I've seen that in my own life. I've seen that with my friends. A lot of things can happen. That's why it's pointless to compare your life situation to someone else's situation. So in terms of putting blame on our parents, as I grew older and I had more serious conversations with my mother, because I started to understand things and I was more interested and I had an open mind. I was not coming from a place of me, what are you doing to me? I realized that like what she did and what she went through was amazing, and who am I to compare all her, like what her actions and her life story to what even I'm doing. When at the age I am now, my mom had me who was 20 years old. And my parents, coming from a completely different background, completely different social status, completely different environment, they managed to put a kid through a private college school, right? So that comes with a hefty price tag, as you know. It costs money, which means that you have to make this money, right? Which means that's like tremendous responsibility. But even if your parents don't put you through a private school, maybe, your parents are doing all they can do, all they know what to do. Everybody expresses love in a different way. And not everyone is very vocal. Not everyone can say, I love you, or you're the best child, or express all those, emotions that we want to hear. But that's not because they don't love you, because everyone has a different way to express love. Everyone has a different love language, because everyone was raised differently. You see, it's a generation thing, because maybe the grandparents who lived in a completely different environment, my grandparents lived in the 40s, 50s, 60s, like the 40s, the World War II, right? It was like hunger. I mean, it was like seriously different times and difficult situations. And they didn't have the privilege and the comfort to think of feelings. People needed to survive. The same thing happened in the 80s when I was born. There was rationing. There was no food on the shelves. And we're talking about the 80s, but we should not forget, or anything. This can happen, and this is happening in certain countries as I speak. I don't want to get political, but what I'm just trying to say, the message is that when you are busy surviving, you cannot think of flowery emotions or other things, right? So people in these situations, they develop a mental toughness. And for them, it's harder to express emotions. Their priority is to get you fed and to keep you alive. And so if you are in that kind of situation where you are surrounded by difficult moments, or you're surrounded by an environment that is not what you would hope you would be born into, don't give up and don't blame your parents. Yes, I'm not saying there are horrible people who should not be parents, and I'm not ruling that out. But you never know what your parent went through or what is going on in their mind and how strong they are to deal with certain situations. People are scared. People are scared. People don't know how to face difficulties, and people react differently. Someone who is scared, they just might run away from everything and hide, run away and say, I don't want this, I cannot deal with this, I can't be there for my child, so I just disappear. That can happen too. But that happens in relationships too. You get ghosted a lot of times because you're seeing someone, and then just all of a sudden they disappear. But that is a reaction of the person that cannot deal with certain situations. So the same thing goes with parenthood. Maybe your parents did not know how to show emotion because their parents didn't show them emotion, because they grew up in an environment there was no space and comfort and privilege for that emotion. I know, like from my mom's stories, my mom's salary was 120 rubles, and she had to work 3 jobs just to put some things on the table for us. So a kilo of cherry cost 12 rubles. So her monthly salary could buy 12 kilos of cherry. I mean, can you imagine working for a whole month and the only thing you can afford is 12 kilos of cherry? This is just, it might seem, you say, Elena, but this is just a silly example. It's not a silly example. It's the basics, right? So you go to the farmer's market or, the supermarket, and you can afford to buy a lot of cherries. But, you don't even think about that. You don't think that you have to work for a month to buy that. But there are still countries where people cannot afford luxuries. For some people, cherries are luxuries. But for other people, caviar is a luxury. Or for some people, it can be flying in a private jet as a luxury. Just an example. So for everyone, priorities are different, and life situations are different. This is why it's easier for you, and it will be easier for you if you took your life into your own hands, not wasting your energy on being upset with your parents, or being upset with where you are born, or being upset with your surroundings, because that cannot change, right? You cannot change your parents. There was a specific reason why you were given to these parents. There was a specific reason why you were put on this earth. You have a purpose. But the sooner you take your life into your own hands, the happier you will be. Blaming is not going to get you anywhere. Trust me with that. Blaming just takes the energy away from you, that energy that you can put into building a better life for yourself, a life where you are responsible for the actions you take, for the choices you make. I hope this was useful, and I hope it gave you some food for thought. I'm going to leave 3 questions in the comments below. Questions that are related to what we discussed and what we talked about in this episode. Something that you can answer at your own convenience. And these are the questions that actually they motivate you to think about and reflect on your current situation. And for me, I found these questions very useful, because it makes you look at things from a different perspective. So you see, the thing is, if you cannot change your situation, change the way you look at it. And that way, you're going to get new ideas and new inspiration, and you will think of a solution, and you will think of how you can move forward. Thanks for watching. It's been a pleasure spending this time with you. Please don't forget to like and subscribe if you found my session useful, and stay tuned for the next episode. Have a wonderful day, everyone. Lots of love and light.